we were talking a little bit that those difficult conversations. I think you have some really good points about that too. If they haven't been said yet, is there value to do that now? And if so, how? I mean,
Well, when we think about difficult conversations, my mind is going in two different directions.
you're right. There's
So for the
many
first, the
difficult,
first
aren't there?
difficult conversation is just, I think, is having that conversation with the family member is if you are to get sick and you have to be placed on some kind of life prolonging medical mechanism, like the ventilators that they're talking about. Would you want that to happen? And based on someone's values and how of what they have about life, some are going to say yes, and some are going to say do it for a little while, and then if I don't improve, remove it. And knowing at that point you would most likely die. And that's a hard thing for people to, when they're healthy, or when they're sick, it's a hard thing to think about, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not a very fun
Pleasant,
conversation to
no.
have either.
So uncomfortable, yeah, awkward.
But it's really helpful for the family members that are able to have that conversation with their loved one, because then they know what they would want, and it takes some of that burden of that decision making off of them.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we're saying, well, you're asking me to, and what we're not, we're just, and that's when we reflect back and say, if Joe was here now talking to us, what would he tell us?
Yeah.
Or we ask about their lifestyle. Um, is it, if he's going to have to continue to be on a ventilator for the rest of his life to live, and he can't go fishing, or he can't play with the grandkids, or he can't take himself to the bathroom, is that a kind of quality of life that he would accept?
Yeah.
And I think we should have those conversations way early before anybody gets sick, just to help your family members know what you would want if that ever happened. Um,
Exactly. If I could interrupt you, because what's striking to me about what you're saying is there's great value. I mean, sometimes you just can't have them for whatever reason, whether it's
mhm.
the family dynamics or whether it's a sudden death or,
Right,
a
right.
lot of things happen. But the ability to try and have one, even like now, I imagine some people might be very hesitant with the pandemic and everything
Mhm.
to want to go, so, if you do die, or what would you like for us to do at the end of this or the end of your life passing? At the same time, from what you've said, I'm just, reminded that an image is a really powerful thing. And if a person has an image of their loved one after they passed, clearly based off of conversations they've had with them, like,
Mhm.
yes, I'd like a memorial service. No, I don't want my obituary in the paper. And, even all those things. And so as the questions get asked, right, to
Mhm.
them either by the doctors or the nurses or the pastors or the whatever it is,
Mhm.
it would be nice that they could go kind of into their heart and their mind and go, oh, I remember that conversation, and this is what grandpa said, this is what
Mhm.
mom said, and just to follow that. I think that, yeah, you're spot on.
Mhm.
And yet it's difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard conversation to have. I mean, even with my own mother recently, when I was there and somehow it came up, so I just went with it. And my brother was there, and he's the power of attorney. And so I said, "Now, does he know where the will is or something?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, he knows." And he goes, "No, I don't."
Right.
And she had this policy for her funeral, and I said, "Does he know where it's at?" Well, she goes, "Yeah, he does." And he goes, "No, I don't."
Exactly.
And so I think it's good too. I mean, this is kind of getting off a little bit, but it's good to have those conversations every so often. Um,
Exactly. Well, I think what you bring up, yeah, that oftentimes the assumption is made, well, they know where all my stuff is. It's
mhm.
okay. And then you discover no, or
Yeah.
you might think it is, and maybe it got moved or it got re-signed or something. And absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or my wife knows what I want, or my kids know what I want. And then you go talk to the family and they go, "Well, you never talked to us about this, so I don't know."
Right. And what a difficult, I mean, the whole conversation we're having is difficult.
Mhm.
And so anybody watching or listening to this, I hope that, we recognize there's a heart and there's a mind thing going on here to even, wrap your brain around the perception that your loved one is dying, might die.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, having these conversations is so helpful,
Mhm.
because once again, then you can kind of pull from that in your moment of grief, and you've got all these emotions after the person dies to be able to know, oh, mom said this, right? Okay, we're going to
Mhm.
do this. So they don't really have to think about it. They can just do it. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, then I'm kind of jumping to those conversations as the person is dying.
Yes.
And
That's
one
a
of the
whole other
things that
different.
I've been taught, and it's only if it kind of rings true to you, which can be done in person or over the phone. And I'm sure this is from somebody who's done research or on grief and dying, but it's it's to talk to them and to the person who's dying, and you can tell them that you love them.
Mm,
It's like, I love you. Please forgive me if that needs to be done. I
mm,
forgive you if that needs to be done. Thank you and goodbye.
mm. I love that. So four things I think to tell them that you love them, forgive them, what they mean to you, thank you, and
Mm-hmm.
goodbye.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, forgive me and I forgive you.
Forgive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgiveness on both sides.
Yeah.
Forgive me. I forgive you.
But only if that really rings true to you. I mean, sometimes there isn't any forgiveness. I mean, the relationship is good, and sometimes it's putting to peace something that has been there for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. That peace part is incredibly, those end of life conversations can be so valuable. And once again, coming back to that idea of creating that perception and the image,
Mm-hmm.
I myself, I know when my father passed, I had the privilege really to have that end of life conversation with him at the end. And, the beauty of that moment when he just looked at me and said, have I been a good father? And to be able to clearly and cleanly, because, we had rocky times, but to just say yes and just to see his face relax and that connection. And there was a moment of peace between us.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're so right, because then that's something I remember about his passing, which
Mm-hmm.
brings, kindness and compassion to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what those end of life conversations can create, although it can be very difficult. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, sometimes it isn't necessary, maybe, or sometimes it just isn't possible.
Right. Right. But
Yeah.
I think that's something that can be even a one-way conversation.
Yes, you're right. Mm-hmm.
So even if they can't respond back to you, it's something that you can say to them. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's value in saying that to express that love and thanks or forgiveness to the person.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that point up. That is so right. So even I could see that, especially right now when, for example, if your loved one gets put on a ventilator,
Mm-hmm.
or they're on life support and they're going to be taken off and they can't respond, to be able to go through these questions, so tender hearted, but very powerful,
Mm-hmm.
about telling them that you love them, and the
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness and the thank yous and appreciations and goodbye. That's
Mm-hmm.
mm, it's powerful just thinking about it. Yeah. And that one way is really okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you find, is it, so let's say you can't do that as the person's passing. Is it useful to do that afterwards in a letter, for example, or to write it down to the person?
Sure, sure. I think that is also useful. Um, Writing letters or journaling about your feelings, um, about their death event, um, or the letter to the person who's died,
Mm-hmm.
is also good. I think one of the things in terms of technology too that I've
Yeah.
discovered is a whole new thing of what they call digital storytelling,
Right. Yeah.
um, which I haven't quite, I mean, I've seen one, but it talks about their experience providing their loved one's care,
Mm-hmm.
or their experience around that person's death. Or it can be more focused on just that person and the things that you value about them. And putting that together, I think it's the same thing when you see a lot of funerals that have the video loops of the photos of the person throughout their lifespan.
Right.
It's bringing those memories and thoughts together and
Mm-hmm.
putting them in an organized fashion.
Right.
And I think can be very healing to folks too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely healing.